We've taken care of Star Wars posters. Now it's time to take a crack at the next most popular Lucasfilm property's promotional material. And not a moment too soon, as a new Indiana Jones movie is hitting theaters, which I'm sure audiences will just be absolutely enchanted with. Just like they were the last time they released a late-in-the-game Indiana Jones movie, or the last time they released a Lucasfilm product under Disney. God, when will these studios learn their lesson? Alright, as soon as all of you learn yours and stop giving them money. Stop watching things you know you're gonna hate, you idiots. Disney doesn't care about your rant videos, they care about butts in the seats. Or on the couch watching it on Disney Plus, either or. I know the FOMO is real for a lot of you, but it's not worth it. Ignore it and it might go away. Okay, rant over with. Let's move on to something less controversial. Posters. Like with Star Wars, all the Indiana Jones movies have an array of poster art designed for them, though not quite to the same insane level of variation as the former. There's still a few interesting highlights though, so let's not waste any more time. The poster for Raiders of the Lost Ark was created by Richard Amsel, a fairly prolific illustrator and graphic designer who created several notable film posters throughout the 70s and early 80s. Aside from Raiders, Amsel's more notable poster art includes that of Flash Gordon, The Dark Crystal, and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. While not quite as eye-catching as, say, the original Star Wars poster, this is still a pretty decent piece of artwork. It's quite grounded and subdued. It doesn't go as over the top as some other posters, but I kinda like that. It feels fitting given how Raiders isn't exactly the largest scale movie in the world, and nothing really crazy or supernatural happens until near the end, so this rather drab palette and simplistic visuals actually work here. Of course, by this point, Harrison Ford was a star, so Amsel made sure to prominently showcase his likeness, and yeah, it actually looks a lot like him. Not just in terms of resembling Ford's face, but also in capturing Indy's character. This worn, stern face is definitely more indicative of the kind of guy Indiana is actually shown to be in these movies than, say, the re-release poster, which gives him this big, toothy grin while he's presumably on the verge of crapping his pants. It's a whole thing, look it up. The only downside to the prominent display of Indy's face is that it doesn't leave a ton of room for the other elements of the poster to really shine. It's all kind of squeezed into the bottom sixth of the art piece, assuming you don't count the credits and tagline which frame the poster. I will say, I do like the detail of this climber's rope here actually attaching itself to the R in Raiders. It's kind of cool when even a poster is allowed to break the fourth wall. The tagline at the top of the poster is a little wordy, but effective nonetheless. If you were a general moviegoer in the early 80s, I imagine this must have made you pretty excited. It's like, hey audiences, you know those two movies that came out that you liked? Well, now the two guys who made those are teaming up. It must have been pretty cool, surely. Before I move on to the next movie, I want to give a little more lip service to the aforementioned Style B poster made for the 1982 theatrical reissue of this film, also drawn by Amsel. Even if Indiana's goofy grin is a little silly looking, I still mostly like the look of this one, though I do find it a little funny that they had to include Belloc twice on the side pillars, since if they didn't do that, they would have had an odd number of heads being displayed. Though they could have just avoided that entirely if they hadn't included the swordsman here, but I guess he was just so essential to the story of the film that the art would be naked without it. I also want to, again, bring attention to the tagline. Now, you could argue that this is simply meant to signify that this is a re-release. However, you could also make the case that this is meant to more broadly represent that this film, in and of itself, is a throwback to the adventure serials that inspired its creation. In a way, Raiders itself is the return of the great adventure. Truly mind-blowing stuff. I hope your neurons can recover from that galaxy brain conclusion. Sadly, Amsel is no longer with us, as he passed away in late 1985 from AIDS complications, at the young age of just 37. Rest in peace, Richard. Seems that Richard Amsel is now a Richard Angel. The Temple of Doom, like Raiders, has two main posters commonly associated with it. The alternate poster, I don't have much to say about. It's just Indiana standing there in his raggedy, ripped-up shirt, which seems to have become the iconic look for Indy in this specific film. The tagline here is at least pretty good, though it's a little harder to make out here than it is on the main poster, which is also just generally the more interesting-looking poster here. It's a true feast for the eyes, with so much going on that there isn't a dull spot in the entire thing. No matter where your eyes go, there's always something interesting to focus on. It almost feels a little cramped and scrunched together, but this isn't a Rise of Skywalker poster type deal where it all just feels purposeless and lame. Here, it's very well planned and thought out. It should come as no surprise that this comes from Drew Struzan, the poster master himself. His work almost never fails to deliver, and this is no exception. Real quick, let's talk about some more alternate posters for this movie. I kinda want to start doing this more as we keep doing these poster art videos. This poster is kinda boring since it's just Indiana Jones standing there, but I want to call attention to this tagline right here. On some versions of this poster, it's the same as what we saw in the other ones, but on other versions of it, it was replaced with this. With that face, I'm not so sure I can. There's also this, I believe, German poster. I'm pretty sure the text at the top gives it away. And by the way, if you're wondering what that translates to, it's, and I'm using Google Translate here, so keep that in mind, adventure has many faces. Indiana Jones shows them all. Not bad, almost as good as the regular tagline, and the poster itself actually has an interesting concept, with the swishes of Indy's whip showing off snippets from the film inside of it. But all of that is kind of hampered when you look down and see Indiana just smirking at you, with it looking like he's giving a thumbs up as he's holding his whip. I don't know if that was intentional, but God, I hope it was. And on that note, let's carry on. The Last Crusade's poster is fucking awesome. It's like it took the concepts established in the previous film's posters and perfected them. We have Indy's giant floating head here, and this time he also made room for his dad to share the frame. But it actually leaves room for the other elements of the film to really shine. It's like they took every major action sequence in this film, exaggerated them, and mixed them together, which is a great idea. It's keeping the themes and feel of the movie intact while still doing its own thing with it. That's how you do it. There's also the various side characters occupying the corners of the poster, similar to the Style B Raiders poster, and the whole piece has this interesting, ethereal glow to it. It might just be intended to be the sun, or it could be representing how this whole movie is about the quest for the Holy Grail. The tagline is also pretty good. It's a little humorous, and I mean, this is probably the funniest Indiana Jones movie, so it kinda works. An alternate poster for this film, which is just another image of Indy standing there looking at us, has a different tagline, which isn't so much a tagline as it is just a basic synopsis of the film's events. Good stuff. There aren't really too many alternates for this movie, at least none notable enough for me to mention, but the main poster is so cool that I think it makes up for it. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, at the very least, went all out and got Drew Struzan back to create a poster for this film, and to the film's credit, it's not bad at all. Obviously, having Struzan himself return for this film goes a long way in at least making the film's promotional material look right and look like this is going to be a proper return for the series. It fits in line with the previous films reasonably well, and includes many of the recognizable design aspects you'd expect from an Indiana Jones poster, or any Struzan poster for that matter. We got Indy's giant head here once again, and while at this point his odd, kind of half smile just seems to be his default expression for this art, this one in particular always kind of stood out to me. For so long I could have sworn he was giving us a little smirk, a little grin, but the closer I look at it, the less I really see it. In fact, it starts looking more and more like he's got that kind of grumpy old man with the kind of look. I mean, it's pretty fitting for this movie, I suppose. Probably even more so for the next one, but hey, I guess in some people's minds, old Indiana Jones is better than none at all, so who am I to judge? As for the rest of the poster, there's not much to say. It's pretty much an amalgamation of the main Struzan posters for the previous two movies. We have a Indy running away from a major action set piece image here, similar to The Last Crusade, and we have the supporting cast somewhat randomly sprinkled throughout the rest of the poster, like with Temple of Doom. The palette is a fair bit different from the previous poster, going for more forested and jungle colors than the beige desert look of Crusade to match the film's environment. And the center of the poster features the titular crystal skull, the glow of which seems to be illuminating the other elements of the poster. It's overall just not a bad poster at all. In fact, the one bad thing you could say about it is that it promises way more than the movie itself delivers, but that's not really a knock against the poster, is it? I will say, I do prefer the teaser poster compared to the finalized one used closer to the film's release. That one is simpler and more reminiscent of the alternate poster for Temple of Doom, but I find it works better here than it did there because this was the first Indiana Jones movie in nearly 20 years. And the simple image of the man himself standing there with his whip, I would think does an even better job at getting people excited than an elaborate art piece full of stuff from the movie would. I also appreciate the inclusion of the crystal skull in the back, it's pretty cool. And finally, we come to the newest Indiana Jones film, The Dial of Destiny. We had a teaser poster a while back that was just the typical main hero's face shrouded in shadow type deal, but more recently we were faced with this, and you know what? I actually really like this poster. I find the colors quite eye-catching. I can't really recall the last time we had a poster colored like this, with the red and blue portions being separated by Indiana himself situated right in the center, where he belongs. You also have all these other parts of the movie all surrounding Indy, like what was done with previous posters, only here, I have no idea how any of these scenes and characters actually play into the story, or whether they're relevant to the movie or not because, well, check the release date. But getting away from the layout for a bit, the style is also very eye-catching. I can't quite tell if this is painted or drawn or if it was just done up in some computer program, but whatever the case, it looks great. This does a better job at capturing the vibes of an old school movie poster than the Disney Star Wars movies did. And more than anything, this doesn't feel like a cheap imitation of a style. It instead feels like an affectionate tribute with genuine thought and effort, but into actually giving people something that feels authentic, respectful, yet still new and fresh. I hope the film this is tied to will follow suit, but as you'd imagine, I have my doubts. Still, if nothing else, this poster shows that already more good has come from this film than ever came from Rise of Skywalker. Nothing major, but baby steps in the right direction. That about takes care of all the Indiana Jones posters I feel like looking at. I'm sure there's probably a bunch that I missed, but to be honest, a lot of the variations I saw while combing through posters to review just kind of looked bland, and some were almost definitely fan-made. I try to stay away from those since, I don't know, it just seems a little unfair. Real quick, before we end things, I want to talk at least a little bit about the new movie. I know I gave it some minor quippage up top, and yeah, the fact that so many people are complaining about the film before it's even released, when we all know they're the ones who are going to be first in line to see it, is pretty funny to me. It's to the point where I kind of don't feel bad for fans of these properties anymore. You guys are doing it to yourselves at this point, I don't know what to tell you. But I also want to say this. Just because I'm not expecting something to be good doesn't mean I don't want it to be. Yes, Lucasfilm has not had the best track record as of late. Yes, Spielberg stepping down as director is a bad omen and a bit of a red flag for some. And yes, octogenarian Harrison Ford is really pushing it as far as action heroics go. I mean, think back to how much grief people give Roger Moore in the mid-80s for playing Bond while he was in his 50s. While nowadays, the mean age for action stars is like 55. All this is to say, I get it. I get why people are jaded, and I understand that it's hard to get excited at this point when we've been burned so many times in the past. All I'll say for now is two things. One, if you think you're not gonna like something, just don't watch it. And two, hoping and expectations are different things. In this case, my hopes are high, but my expectations are low. We'll see which ones ultimately win out. As for now though, all we can do is wait. I know, it's hard. Thank you for watching, have a great day, and until next time, see ya.